of a meeting.
Yeah,
I was kind of excited.
Yeah.
We
We were actually like triple booked in the meeting room and I didn't even realize she had the library program scheduled for the meeting. And
Thank you.
we bumped the Republican Town Committee out today.
That's not a bad thing.
All right, so I think we're good for today. Whenever you're ready.
Do we have quorum, believe?
We're good.
We're good?
Yeah.
Guess we'll call the meeting to order. It is 7:02. So we received the estimate probable cost and the unbelievable master plan. Yeah, pretty awesome.
It's amazing what graphics, make things really come to life.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. Kevin, I guess I'm gonna turn over to you and.
Yep.
Yeah, do your thing and we'll talk.
Works for me.
Good.
This really is more of, meetings in the past, I've been talking at you as far as the progress. I'd really like to kind of get some of your feelings, your input from this, so I can give kind of a quick elevator pitch of what we've been up to. And then really, I'd like to hear your thoughts, kind of opinions. We've got, we're in the works of putting, text to this plan now, so that the physical master plan, it will be a document with all of our findings, our recommendations, and then this is the pretty picture that goes along with it. And then obviously the costs. So we're working on the text on the back end and anticipating that's going to be next month. Roll that out to you, kind of take our feedback from tonight, respond to it as need be. And then next month will be kind of the less sexy document of, here's a lot of words to substantiate what we've been talking about. So for tonight, again, we've been talking kind of blobs and pictures and areas, and what we've now been able to do is physically land in graphical terms, what these things are going to look like from a bird's eye view. Some things, some feedback that we're seeing as we're doing this, and we can walk and talk each one of those numbers as we go. As far as some feedback we've got, and then obviously the costs. At that point, we're all sitting around the table about how much this is going to cost. So, I'll say
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
Because the first thing most people see are the price tag. They go buy a car, they see the price tag. They go buy groceries, they see the price tag.
exactly
Creativity it's the
nice.
key. It's the key.
Exactly. It's and to get to the price tag, some people look at item by item. Hey, is it worth getting the alloy wheels instead of the steel rims? And then other people look at the MSRP of the vehicle. So we're kind of looking at that in both ways, where we say, okay, what does number 6 look like if you're zoning in on number 6? Or what does the project look like if you're looking at the bottom line? And all of that has to flush out, kind of pass the gut check. I'll be honest, some of these haven't passed my gut check yet. Some of these numbers are higher than I'd like them to be. And I think based upon this conversation, we can ratchet those down a bit.
That's kind of standard procedure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and then a few of these, frankly, I want to raise, now having, put the numbers on the page, looked at them, come back, looked at them again. A couple of them I feel are too low based upon, real world construction. But also looking at the bottom line, this is, the scope of this work is master plan, is big picture, so that we need to look at this and saying, if we're applying for a grant in 5 years, we need to make sure there's enough money on this paper to substantiate that grant.
It changes every April.
Exactly. So, to be fair, these are, there's one column of costs of 2023 costs, and then we apply the 25% contingency to those prices. Historically, I tell you, construction prices go up 5% a year. The past 3 years, man, it's 10, 15, 20%, depending on the item. So that 25% contingency in most of these are going to be okay.
I think my mother-in-law and I had a convection about benches the other day, and she said, "Really?" I said, "Absolutely,
Yeah, benches are expensive.
100%,
Absolutely.
100%."
Light posts,
Yeah.
decorative light fixtures.
Yeah,
I just put them in the Colchester Town Green. I budgeted them before the pandemic at $6,500 a piece.
now they're 11,000.
Bingo.
Yeah.
just looked at
it's,
it. Sorry.
and it's the same fixture, it's, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we built in some of that, but honestly, I can't in good faith say I'm gonna bump the numbers to where, you know, I couldn't have guessed what the last 3 years would have done to construction budgets. So, you know, looking through this, and I think the best way to do this is put the cost estimate on one side and the pretty picture and the concept plan, the master plan on the other. They're not going to be in numerical order based upon what you see on the right-hand side. So there's going to be some jumping around here, but we can go top to bottom on the cost estimates. Specifically, you know, starting with a new playground on that first page of the cost estimate, that new playground from 5 to 12 years, that's item number 6 on the plan. In looking at that, that's going to be one of the things that frankly is going to frighten most people. Because if we're talking about, you know, $500,000 for a playground, that's going to scare a lot of people if that's the first item they see in this. Looking down, that big item is going to be the put in place the rubber surface. And the conversation to be had with this group is to say that entire area shown on the plan does not have to be the rubber surfacing. You know, there could be the engineered wood fibers, and to cut that price significantly. But that's kind of the feedback, and I don't need a hand raise or a thumbs up, thumbs down on each item. But that's going to be, you know, as I'm going through here, it's the big ticket items. It's going to be what becomes the shock. That first item, the physical playground equipment, that could be as much or as little as the community wants to put into it. That $150,000 line item, these prices are real world prices from, you know, jobs we're building last year. But the big item here is the playground equipment. Honestly, I've been working with the town of East Hampton for the past 5 years. It's a fundraising golf tournament every year, and from that golf tournament, they put in a new piece of playscape equipment. So, you know, when we're talking about 12,000 square feet, you know, East Hampton has 14,000 square feet. You know, we've got the materials, and much of that being volunteer labor. We're able to install playscape or playground just like this for half the price, for $225. Some creativity. You know, that was working with a company that came in, you know, it was a build day, build weekend, you know, build week. And, you know, they brought in some of their professional staff. It was a volunteer effort with the town. It was a feel good thing that the town got a playscape out of it. So that $225, okay, that's, you know, creativity, but I can't in good faith build that into the overall master plan because that was a lot of volunteer effort.
I will say Voluntown is not East Hampton.
Yep.
So be it that we've been on the rec commission for X amount of years. I've been there for 13 years.
Yep.
James has been on it for 5 now, right? The volunteer effort is not quite what East Hampton has. And if we're using that as a kind of comparison, there's a lot more economic development in East Hampton.
Absolutely.
You get it, you know.
Absolutely. And that's so this is one of the items, you know, this is one of say 3 or 4 that my gut tells me we need to be cautious with that number because the optics are going to put people for one side of this conversation or another. Right. And that becomes kind of a reality for this committee.
Low, so to speak.
Is to say, you know, where do we want that number to fall? And it's created, you know, creativity based upon the surface treatment and the physical equipment. You know, there's not a whole lot other work involved in that because the location is already, you know, fairly flat, graded, ready to go. Full package.
Yeah, this building was a lot of done with volunteer work, and I really have mixed feelings about volunteer work because, I mean, I don't know where the problem lies, but there was not a lot of documentation of what happened, so there's missing information that would have been helpful along the line.
There's not a lot of it out there nowadays either.
What we were just talking about before you came in.
Yeah.
You know, so items 5 and 6 here, the complete page 1 being the two playscapes. You add those up, in 2023 costs, we're showing $825,000. I think my gut tells me that's too high,
Mhm.
but I need to hear that from you guys. And then we need to generally agree on, backing that off to a comfortable level, recognizing that, that's one of these items that, you have ultimate flexibility on. Build as big or as little as you want, seek out grant funding, volunteer efforts, fundraising for equipment. That could be anywhere or anyhow we want to handle this. But, we need to be cautious of how we present that out in this report.
Well, realistically, I mean, how much could we expect from grant money? Is that?
Well, I think that's a conversation that we will have
Mhm.
regarding multiple aspects of the project.
Mhm.
And there are different types of grants that we
Mhm.
can pursue based on different parts of the project itself.
I'm just trying to get a feel for what we're gonna ultimately end up having the community. What portion they're gonna be expected to.
Well, that depends on the grant you go.
Well, that's what I'm
Like,
trying to get.
For example,
feel
like
for.
sorry, Kevin, I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
I was gonna kind of save this for later, but like 16, which would be the sidewalk at a $400,000 price. It's a little bit less than that. That's a connectivity grant. That's different than a STEAM grant.
Mhm.
So that is something maybe the town could spearhead as a phase one. And if you break it down into different types of grants, the feasibility of getting these grants is better. It might take longer, but it's better. Which would make the townsfolk, as you see your taxes potentially increasing, that's what they're, to speak from the town people, because I see both sides of the paper. They're gonna see a price tag and they're gonna freak out. So if you say break 16 right out of it, take 16 completely out of the Gate Street grant potential or our recreational facility potential, it might pacify their, their feelings a little bit. And then you come down to like dollars per week or dollars per day, or that it really doesn't amount to much. They just see, bam, big money.
Mhm.
So we have to be very creative on how we're going to spearhead this. The playground, at $800,000 is gonna look like, well, if there's only 10 kids visiting it every day, why do we spend that kind of money?
Yeah, maybe we could cut it in half.
Yeah, well, that's where Kevin's saying, the creativity part of it, take the rubber surface out. Let's go with something different, drop the number down 25 or 30%.
What about the $1,000 trash can?
Okay, so just, can you
Some
mind?
things can be done like over time, like we've been buying the $1,000 trash cans, like.
We
over
have
time,
the
we've been
the
updating.
rec commission's bought, how many, 6, 8 of them in the last
We're buying
year.
those.
At $1,000 a piece?
So,
Yeah.
okay, so what you see is these numbers, just. I think there's only 2 people in the room who understand where these numbers come from, and maybe, I'm sorry, what's her name?
Emily.
Emily.
Yep.
These are and you do too, obviously. These numbers come from what they call a Department of Transportation weighted cost list. So in order to keep competitive bidding amongst construction companies globally across the state of Connecticut, these are dictated annually in order for the bidding to be competitive. So when you bid on a job as a contractor, that's what you refer to. And then the creative part for a contractor is like how many hours, how many this, how many that, these are like a global number. That's what he put there. So like the benches, the garbage cans, every contractor uses this number to bid on a job. It's competitive. It's not what Kevin picked. It's not what Emily picked. It's what everybody in the state picks as a number.
Industry number.
It's an industry standard.
It raised quite an uproar at the,
Well, that's what I mean. Like, okay, so
Well,
be it like we're all representatives of each individual group.
Right.
We need to reflect the information to the people who have problems with that. That's our responsibility. And that's exactly what it is. It is a broad spectrum, global number used by everybody.
but we're not at the point where we can even talk about that with the public yet, are we?
We can start.
You can start.
Start.
Yeah, we can-
Starting the
sure.
conversation's good. That way we can get questions back.
I
Yeah.
hope I'm not losing you, or Kevin, you probably should be telling people this, not
Oh,
me. but-
oh, no, and it's gonna be
You
a
know?
tag, it's a tag team effort, I'll be honest, because, you know, these numbers are gonna shock people. And unless you're in the construction industry, you're saying, okay, $1,000 trash receptacle, oh my gosh. But, you know, okay, that could, you know, that could vary slightly, but generally speaking, that price is only going up. So,
Well, you know, you should have heard the uproar when we did
Sidewalks.
oh my God, why are you spending $1 million out there? That could be spent as, no, it's a grant to do that specific thing.
right,
Yeah.
They didn't
There it is.
understand.
There it is.
right,
Well, okay, so back to the public information, it's our responsibility to invite these people that are complaining, invite them, sit down, we will explain it to you. This is where it comes from, this is what it is. This is a broad spectrum number. We can get creative and knock things down using a different product,
exactly.
but that takes effort. And Kevin's done the effort, he's done it, you know, like, so we can go with it or we cannot go with it.
And it doesn't behoove us now to start bringing those numbers down, because the point of the overall master plan is to have the numbers, I don't want to say artificially high, but high enough to say in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we're going out to seek grant funding. We don't want to come in and say, man, that, you know, that
We
$600.
messed up.
Exactly.
So that's all short kind of thing.
That's exactly it.
And it's always good to go big before you get the grant, because if you come in under the grant with your bid number, the grant people are like, oh, great,
Right.
here you go. Here's a higher percentage, or here, you know, this is what we'll cover.
Here's all the money. you want.
Well, that's why I'm answering that question in terms of grant money. We talked, I thought initially about hoping that this project would be taken care of through grant money.
Yes,
It's like
that's
separate, different.
Different
grant
parts of it,
opportunities,
yes, and
yeah.
a different
Which-
time schedule.
Which is why I said number 16 falls under a different type of grant
Mhm.
than what we would potentially be looking at.
Right, I understand that. We'd
Yeah.
have different grants for different things.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, I understand that.
And that was the goal, to break it out as detailed as we did, is
Yeah.
to say, okay, you know, effectively 4 through 21 here. Each one of those could be cherry picked out of here to say, you know, we're going to apply for this money and seek this and fund it this way. You know, and we also broke down the costs accordingly, so we could literally, you know, to your point, pull out item 16, which we've already talked about doing, which we intend to do for, you know, grant app in the next, you know, a month and a half.
Yeah, right.
Is to say that's now a standalone item, and those are the plans that we have, you know, to talk about at the end of this discussion.
Hence the reason to put them in.
Exactly. So, you know, there isn't a one size fits all here,
Mhm.
but, you know, building this document to the point where it's, I hate the word dynamic, but it's that, you know, you can pull it out and use it, you know, use it for its intent in pieces. You don't have to say, well, here's the entire document, flip to page 50. No, you can pull out page 50 and have, say, in the next page and a half, this is what you need for the grant application. So, you know, for that first page, for items 5 and 6 for the playscape playgrounds, I'm getting the same feedback from you. I'm feeling myself, is to say, you know, if that 825 number becomes 450 to 500, we back out the rubber play surface to the engineered wood fiber. We could back out the equipment down to something to make the, you know, to balance that number. And to recognize there's a lot of square footage there, and that can grow.
Yeah, we could grow, expand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Turning to that next, give me page 2 on the costs. Starting with expanded parking area, boat launch, and working down. Those items and this final document, these will be, you know, coded to the numbers on the plan too. You start at number 15, 14 to 10, working down the page. So that expanded parking lot corresponds to number 15. Honestly, that number feels low to me for the amount of pavement, amount of parking and access drives. That 586 number, that's going to be a sharp number in today's.
Did you price that out full reconstruction?
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's, I don't want to take for granted any of the sub base or base materials are any good. If it is, that's a coup that we, net,
Don't bet on it.
exactly. So, from there, that becomes a good candidate looking at grants. That becomes a good steep grant.
Yeah.
Chunk. Looking at that 586, okay, you bring that down to a $500,000 steep grant, you put in the 20%, and that covers you for the parking lot. If there needs to be some adjustments or some fine tuning, that math works. I'll say it feels sharp to me, but in good faith, trying to keep the bottom line to somewhere that it's not frightening. I think if there was a steep grant application in the next year or two, I think those numbers still kind of truth out and we can get there.
Yeah, some of these items don't change that dramatically.
No.
In fact, the sub-base material went down this year.
I did not notice that. I haven't,
Asphalt went down too.
I was gonna say, where's asphalt?
It probably went down 5%.
Okay,
So it's
okay.
reasonable.
It's reasonable.
Yeah.
It's reasonable. Based upon the past couple of years, I'll take a slight reduction. And asphalt's always one of those,
Yeah, it's volatile.
it's, asphalt will typically, if we're bidding a job more than a few months in advance, the contractors are asking us for, allowances for asphalt fluctuations.
Right.
So we can't hold that for more than a couple months.
Definitely volatile.
Moving down to the removals. I'll say a couple of these are wild ass guesses. This was kind of a gut check of what some demolition contractors would be looking at. But these are, again, we carry these as lump sum items. These are guesses. And some of them are going to be high. Looking at, removal of the existing playground, lawn restoration for 25 grand. That's a big number to remove a playground area. But recognizing that, I don't think these need to be adjusted up or down. I think it's just kind of talking points
That to me looks like a volunteer point.
yes. Yep. Yeah, the only thing here that would require a contractor would be the demolition of the existing garage. Everything else, in the existing parking lot. That second one for the, baseball field, for the playscape, volunteer effort to, a local contractor could, donate a day to rip down the backstop, things like that, so some creativity, some good faith. The demolition, let's be honest, demolition's always fun, That's
In the construction industry, I may not be able to build much, but I can demo like crazy.
it.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, and
They use
the
different words than like crazy.
the meeting house costs less than that. But it didn't have water in it.
Yeah, there's electrical, there's
Yeah.
water. Yeah,
Well, there was electrical in the meeting house. There was
there was
water.
electrical in there?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
All that time.
it had a
There's a meter
heating
in-
unit in it.
Wow.
It had a furnace, just didn't have running water.
For Mr. Ricard. He didn't sleep much living there, did he?
We didn't let him.
I'm sorry. Keep going, sorry, Kevin.
that's, so moving on down to family picnic area, that's gonna be a real low dollar one, because really that is just picnic tables. We carry landscaping and trees elsewhere, so that really is, one of the ones that, doesn't have a lot going on. That's an easy item. Again, getting past the picnic table at $3,000 each, to that point, that just has to be a sales pitch if somebody's gonna balk at it.
We have
That could
a
be an
great Eagle Scout program in this town. They built 4 for us, the pavilion.
Moving on to the pavilion and new bathrooms. Those numbers, that first item, be it the building for the restroom and office, that comes out to being, somewhere between $225, $250 a square foot.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
What did you price out for the restrooms? As far as what
The fixtures, the finish, things like that.
the method, was it a green situation,
Composting.
composting?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
I saw some, which I have photographs I can show you, in Old Saybrook. They have an awesome little recreational facility downtown, right near the Catherine Hepburn Theater. Small, isolated.
Yep.
Twice the size, 4 times the size of a porta potty.
Yep.
Little tiny little
Yep.
modular buildings.
Yep.
And I took some pictures of them. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I'd love to see
They're
it.
fantastic. Right next to an 8-court pickleball system.
Wow.
That every single one of them had 4 people playing on each one. And let me tell you, it's not as loud as everybody says it is. It isn't.
Well, good, because you're moving over near me now.
Oh, yeah, it's not loud. It's not loud. I was there all day, you can barely hear
And that's, so at $225, I mean, right now that math works out to $244 a square foot. But order of magnitude, 225 to 250, you can get a lot of building built for that. It's honestly, I think some creativity says that could come down significantly and still meet the intent of what you're after.
it.
That's my gut on that one. But leaving a price of that magnitude in here, I think is in good faith.
Yep.
Because I don't want to talk ourselves down and then, okay, building is one where everybody's going to have an opinion. Everybody wants an accoutrement that's going to cost a little more. I think it's a good faith number to keep where it's at. The next one down, that pavilion, that one shows up at $100 a square foot. At $175,000, you can get a lot of pavilion built. I think that's a good number to come down.
Yeah.
If we needed to ratchet something down to hit a target number. Okay, you could call any of the, Carefree Buildings, Clota Farms, the Barnyard, any of the prefab guys. And have them drop a post and beam pavilion here for,
This one was under 20.
exactly. It's so,
We got one quoted for what, 50?
The school did.
so looking at that number, that one's that one that doesn't pass my gut check. I think that number could come down and we could argue it. I mean, even to the point of, we could do the due diligence of having a quote done by one of those prefab companies and just slide that into the document and say 2023 costs. Add a few bucks a square foot for a concrete pad or paver pad to make it a nicer, upgrade,
That's the service.
and, just have them drop it.
Yep.
So that's gonna be one of the ones I want to bring down now seeing it. All right, moving on to page 3, starting at the top, the fenced-in dog park. That item 13 on the plan for the fenced-in dog park, frankly, looking at that price, that's gonna be one that frightens people. And that's based upon there being a lot of accoutrements there that would typically not be seen at a dog park.
Right.
I like the fact that you elevated these numbers. I do.
And I think this becomes one of the items that really, it's a talking point for this committee. Is to say, all these numbers are realistic numbers.
Mhm.
We can defend them by, showing you bid tabs with these numbers on them. But putting this out to the community, you're gonna get serious blowback by saying, you want my dog to go walk in a park that's 100.5. I can hear it now.
Yeah.
But recognizing that, you know what? We put in all the items that
Why?
apply.
Yeah.
What about a filling station and a water service for your pets? Do you need it? Absolutely not. You have the, the water body right next to, but to that point, it's here. Some communities want it, others don't. It's worth a talking point, is to say we could leave it in and bring that number, or leave that number generally where it is. But I'm also afraid of the optics of having a fenced-in dog park looking at, 100.5 to within, with a contingency over 200 grand. And don't need an answer on that right now, but we can, that's one that's worth, putting an asterisk next to.
Yeah, we have quite a bit of shade down there now, for most of the day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we're gonna
You
have to get creative. Our meetings are not done
no,
at all.
so I mean, just that shade number could
Yep.
come down, just but that's gonna. Affect other plans if you were to leave trees down there,
Exactly,
you know, with the roundabout you got on here, the
right,
track,
right.
and the overlook.
So it's one of those items that it's a nice to have.
Yep,
It's not something that, you know, I'm going to, you know, I'm not staking my final, you know, my final claim on the shade canopy for the dog park.
right,
But I'll present that out and say in good faith, it's something we've used. It's very successful when it's in.
Yep.
You need it. But is it nice to have? Absolutely.
I have a question. You said it's shady down there, so that means it's shady for the community garden also.
17.
So there's also a component here that's clearing some of that vegetation within that buffer.
Could be selective.
Exactly,
But it depends which way the sun goes, too. I mean, that's the east.
exactly.
So,
It sets.
and that's the south. So
sets
if
that
it goes
over there.
around that way, then if there are trees
So late
on the
afternoon,
north side, then it's really not gonna affect.
Not gonna affect.
Cast shade on it.
you know, it's going to be this time of day that's in the shade.
Right,
You know, most of that, you know, okay, during the growing season, you're gonna get from, you know, I'm guessing 9 AM to 3 PM. You're in sun. I don't find any objection there.
yeah, and it'll be overhead too.
Right.
directly, so.
Good thing about the community garden is we can give practice to the fire department, and they can water it for us.
Right.
I'm not kidding.
Well,
Marlboro
they
does.
water over there, the
Marlboro does it. They fill up their truck and it gives them practice hooking up.
They did it once and then they told me they couldn't do it. It just wasn't physically possible.
I disagree with that. They can spray
So
water
do
on
I.
your house and they can spray water on.
Yeah.
What is it?
Brush everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure they can.
it's good training. Marlboro does it, once a week. And it's training for their volunteer fire department.
I
As
mean,
long as they
right
hose
there.
it's not so forceful, it's gonna.
No, they have sprinkler
Yeah.
setups where they just do like a cam lock fitting. You set up the sprinklers and they're already set and they just hook up to it
Good.
and that's it. Our fire department's great here in town, so I wouldn't see any objection from them. They've helped us fill our ice rink.
Some of them are.
I like to be optimistic there.
Okay.
We're looking for volunteers.
Maybe
right now.
retirement
Isn't this
is
the
in the
town of
picture
volunteers?
therefore.
Isn't that the irony? Like,
Yeah,
this is a volunteer
That's
town.
right.
that's why we have openings are committees.
All right, jumping down to the bicycle skills park, that's item number 4 on the plan. That, you know, $107,000. Groton Skills Park was 91,000. I'm very comfortable with that number, and that was, and those were done in a vacuum. As far as these numbers, we came up with 107. I back checked Groton today before I came down. So
Did you basically design it? Oh, not that there's a design anyway, but based on the same quantities that Groton has?
generally speaking,
Generally?
yeah, I mean, granted, I didn't item by item, it was a rough comparison.
Okay.
It was more, you know, plan to plan, put them side by side.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, understood.
You know, honestly, if that number, recognizing it was just 91,000 current, you know, if that number was to go up to, you know, 125 to 150, I wouldn't argue that fact. Recognizing there could be some additional amenities there, or we could shift some of that dollars into kind of the adjacent amenities, if you will.
I personally expected that number to be higher.
Yeah, and so it felt right. Groton's check. Obviously, it's always nice when you, when the numbers work, when the math works, but you know, like to your point, I'd like it higher too, just based upon some of the other items in here. Kind of, if you're looking at it just kind of on the, you know, from above, that becomes a cheaper alternative to a dog park. And
Yeah.
I'd like those numbers to be, honestly, if we flipped those numbers, so the dog park was sub 6 figures and the skilled park was, you know, 100.5.
It'd be a hell of a bike park right there.
Right.
See more people riding their bikes than you walking dogs.
Well, you know, I'm thinking the school population is going down, isn't it? It's decreased.
It has. I don't know how significantly though. And
Yeah, I don't know if
That's
it's
one thing
starting to
that's
pick back.
pleasant, since
It's
Bonelli.
just shy of 300 now,
Yeah,
and that's K through 8 we're talking about. So how many bike riders do you have?
Well, I think with
out of
the,
that
with
number?
the. With the involvement of this design through the DEP and the bike course that's gonna be going to the state forest, I think. You'll see cyclists very excited about it.
Good.
And I know a lot of
Good.
folks in town that do ride bikes and just in speaking,
and I
Are
think
real pumped.
if you build it, they will come.
I agree. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Perfect.
This, yeah, just shy of 300 kids at the school, but where are they riding their bikes currently?
That's right.
Right.
That's the thing, if they
Right.
have something to come,
They will.
and there's several just right around here in the village that could fill that up
Sure.
any given day, so.
All right, moving on to the next page, where sports courts are on the top of the page. This is one of the numbers I want to raise. In looking at these costs, currently working on a couple tennis court jobs and the pickleball court job, the cost we're seeing come in. I'd like this number to be significantly higher than what it's shown there. I'm seeing that subtotal of 299. I'm doing a reconstruction of 2 tennis courts and 2 basketball courts, and the price for the reconstruction of that's going to come in almost 299. You know, that's going to be a $250,000 job for just the reconstruction of existing. So this is going to be one of the ones I want to revisit and bump up.
What types of, this, I'm kind of ignorant to this fact. What type of grants are available for situations like this? I know, yeah,
I'm gonna say of all the grant funding, the recreation specific grants are where I'm the weakest. Of the linear trails, the sidewalks, the transportation, I've got those in the back, like the back of my hand. When it comes to specifically a recreation, that one I'm gonna take, frankly, I'm gonna refer back to a couple of my park and rec directors that I work closely with to see where they're looking for money. A lot of the park and rec work I do is, you know, we're piggybacking in recreation component to a steep grant because we're getting parking lot improvements
yeah,
with a playscape.
Right.
Or we're piggybacking onto something. You know, the rec trails money, okay, it's a trail to a trailhead, and then there's a fitness, you know, an outdoor fitness center component to that linear trail. So it's funded through DEP. That kind of stuff where we're creatively funding it on the side. I know, you know, some towns have been, you know, very comfortable spending ARPA money on specifically recreation. I'm thinking specifically the reconstruction of the courts I just mentioned at 250. That community is pulling that out of their ARPA monies. I just did a softball field that was ARPA money. So, you know, some towns are more bullish than others, you know, as far as getting that creative approach. But as far as grants, like I said, that's part of the, you know, that's part of our charge in putting together the final document. That's one I have to think about a little bit because I don't know that for sure. But yeah, that number, like I said, that, you know, that 344 on the total, my gut says that should be close to $500,000. That's, you know, I don't know how I'm going to get there yet, but again, just kind of the gut feeling there says, I want to look back on those unit prices real carefully. And to that point too, if it's $500,000, right now we're talking about, you know, asphalt courts. At $500,000, we could also, you know, look into the possibility of maybe a post-tension system on one court or, you know, a multiple battery of courts. So somewhere around $500,000 gives us the flexibility to say, maybe we have some asphalt, maybe we have, you know, one, you know, competition level court that's post-tension.
yeah. Can you explain post-tension, people?
Absolutely. So asphalt courts, you're going to, you know, you're going to put a base down, you're going to pave it, and in 2 to 5 years, you're going to be chasing cracks like you're doing in a roadway or a parking lot. Post-tension concrete is effectively a slab that's only 5 inches thick. So it's the same thickness as a sidewalk, but we put strands of rebar through it and then tension it after they pour it. So bridge decks and things, parking garage decks are pre-stressed or pre-tension. So
They do
they,
the same thing, they just tension the cable prior to pouring the concrete.
And
exactly.
they last longer.
Yes, so a post-tension concrete court that comes with, a surface of a 20-year warranty from cracking. So you don't have to touch this thing for 20 years.
Yeah, so that's
It is,
It elevates the costs,
exactly,
but it
Right, over
limits,
the
it
long
limits the
run.
maintenance.
yeah, in the long run, it's probably cheaper.
in the long run, it is cheaper. So if we're looking for grant-funded projects, we are talking long run. If this was, funding out of capital, okay, maybe it's worth just repaving, putting down a new surface and saying, well, in 10 years, we're gonna have to do the same darn thing again. But grant-funded projects, we can say, okay, we are now talking about a 20-year runway. You
Better
know,
investment. for that.
Exactly. So, with that $500,000, like I said, I may be able to put in a post-tension court line item in there. Or just understanding that there's enough budget to say, when the time comes for the actual design, we can then fine tune the design and say, well, okay, is it gonna be one pickleball court? A pickleball court's about $65,000 a piece for a post-tension pickleball court. Rough numbers. So, do we put all of our eggs in the basket of pickleball? Or do we do a tennis, a battery of 2 tennis courts that could be striped for pickleball and tennis and get creative there? I think there's a lot of room to, for that discussion when the time comes. But again, just kind of, for this conversation, I'm seeing that, that 350 go up to about 500. In the optics, again, I think that's very justifiable.
I don't think any one of us in the town or the rec commission are interested in chasing down maintenance
That's
or
like the downfall
every
of
2
everything
years.
is maintenance. Cause that can get cut from the budget easier,
Yes.
so.
Exactly. And
it
that's,
gets cut from the state budget. That's why
Yeah.
that's why you see these squiggly lines all over the highway, because they seal every crack instead of resurfacing it
exactly,
or doing it the right way to begin with.
right, it's,
We complain about our roads, but there's a method to the madness,
when you look at the old historic road beds, you're going to peel up 2 inches of asphalt and find 9 inches of concrete.
Not concrete. All
That's,
state roads were like that at
Yeah.
one point.
Yeah, I just did an asphalt class with Public Works and they actually showed core samples from state roads that were like this thick of concrete and asphalt, like all layered.
we're doing
Which one was concrete?
yeah,
Almost every state road in the state.
You can see all the layers
Everyone.
in the core sample. Crazy.
yeah, we're working with the DEP for a rec trails funded project out in Winstead, out on the Mad River Dam recreation area, where Route 44 drops down into the Army Corps impoundment. And you can walk the old Route 44 roadbed, it's still the concrete, and then stamped in the panels of concrete are the physical dates of the pour.
Holy cow, that is crazy.
It was fantastic because
Yeah.
it was like, November 11th, 1937. And it looks better than, most sidewalks that you see and going in this road, it's phenomenal.
You really like once in a while, pay attention if you're driving down Route 12 or 138 or 165 or any of these roads. Off the center line, 10 feet, there's a seam. You'll see a crack. That's from the settling that's outside of the concrete road base that's below it. That was how wide the roads were at one point. They were 20 feet wide
Yeah, they had to make them bigger.
and they paved right over them,
Mm-hmm,
extended the pavement, and that's where the crack.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, they talked about that at the class.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's so, I'm a real advocate of post-tension
Oh,
boards
yeah.
because again, they cost more, but man, maintenance, it's not gonna be in the maintenance budget for long. If you get it in there in 5 years, it's gonna be cut for something else.
We'll all be retired by then, so you don't have to worry about it. At least retired from volunteering.
6 feet under then.
Yeah. I'll keep doing.
You're not you. No way.
We know that. Let the soil crack seal all over them.
Yes. Lack of budget, that's it.
Lack of budget, that's it. What can we do?
All it is.
Let's seal the cracks and maybe next year, maybe next year.
Exactly.
You chase it all the time.
That next item, the pedestrian walking path. That item number 8 corresponding on the plan, that is the bulk of the meandering pathway that you see on the plan. That's gonna be a number that frightens people.
Mhm.
You're seeing $1 million.
It's not unreasonable.
It's not unreasonable. It really is not. And that's one that we have to overcome.
Did you do, I don't wanna say square footage, linear footage?
Yeah.
What was the linear footage?
I don't remember.
You know, are they they're 5 feet wide?
Actually, no, excuse me, it's a 10 foot. 10 foot wide.
They're 10 foot wide.
Yeah, 10 foot wide. 10 foot
See,
wide.
that's something potentially we could minimize as well.
Exactly, exactly.
There's 10 foot.
I like the course, I like the layout,
I like it a lot.
yeah.
I like it too.
I will say in looking at this, Emily, if you're near a takeoff, if you could give us an update as what that linear foot for
That would
the,
definitely get used.
for the walking trail would be, that would be great. So some opportunities, again, 10 feet could easily go to 8 feet or less and meet the intent. Another option would be a core perimeter of pavement and side paths or adjacent that could be stone dust or gravel. I don't like that as an idea. Once again, maintenance, the stone dust trail is going to become a grass trail and unused in a short term. But again, if there's the optics involved in dropping those numbers, that would be something that we could look into, possibly having a core that would be, a 10 foot, a measured 10 foot distance that we could say it's a quarter mile, or it's, to say if somebody wants to come and walk a distance or walk a number of steps, they can say, well, this is a 10 foot wide multi-use path for 1,000, 1,200, 20, pick a distance. And then the rest could be 6 foot, more like a sidewalk section.
Is this the one that's like wheelchair accessible?
Yep.
Are there regulations on that?
Yes,
Yes, there
there
are.
are percentages of pitch that you have to meet
Yes.
What about,
per the American with Disabilities Act.
what about width?
So width is
It
any,
is typically 5 feet.
yeah, and it's anything less than 6 feet.
5 feet isn't very wide.
It's no, so less than 6 feet, I think it's every couple hundred feet you need to pull off.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it's, you can see the 250 or 500 feet, it's not very long in the overall scheme. I like to say that if it's truly handicap accessible, you do try and stick with a 72 inch with a 6 foot minimum. That gets away from any of the caveats in the ADA accessibility code.
You're like even a little bit under, I believe, on your square footage price. You're like $1.
Yeah.
Per square foot. So that could elevate too.
So that number, like I said, is going to frighten people,
Mhm.
but it's not unrealistic.
Is that something that could be included now? Logistically, it wouldn't happen just based on everything else.
Mhm.
But if our connectivity grant.
Yeah.
Incorporated those sidewalks.
Yep. I'm working on a connectivity grant right now through the Colchester Town Green. There was handicap pads onto Main Street in Colchester, and then we improved all the stone dust pathways and added lighting. That was all through
So it's all
connectivity.
connected.
Oh, wow.
Connectivity. So the reason I say that was 16, which I think would be a wise decision to include in the connectivity grant would be to now keep in mind all the construction for everything else would be basically based on where our sidewalks are. But that doesn't really matter because it hasn't been designed yet. The sidewalks could basically drive the bus on everything else.
Right.
But the sidewalks would be covered by a connectivity grant. That would probably be more feasible to get than a grant for a separate sidewalk. Am I correct in saying that?
You're absolutely right. And it's a good segue to flipping the page to item 16 is the sidewalk number. The sidewalks along roadways, that's item 16 on that next page. Right now, we're at 100 and there's going to be a bust in one of my formulas there because I'm looking at the 106 to the 370 and the total for the 25% contingency. So there's something there that math doesn't work, but either way, even if we're looking at the 25% contingency number of 370, the connectivity grant cap goes up to 800. So that becomes a real good opportunity to be looking at that connectivity grant by tying in other walkways within this park.
Right.
Is this-
Maximize that.
Yeah.
As much as you possibly can.
and looking at that number so that, roughly the sidewalks along Gate Street are gonna be, you know, somewhere between 250 and 300. And then we double it to get, you know, pathways through the park. We're still only at 500. Depends on the town's threshold for, do we bring it all the way up to 800, or do we bring that down to something that we're more comfortable approaching? But either way, we have a lot of bandwidth there to tie in the walkways around this park to that connectivity grant that's due on the 21st of July. So to that point, you know, these plans that I have here with me tonight for the sidewalk on Gate Street are substantially complete. Those are going to substantiate a portion of that grant. And then we can very easily work with, you know, this level of plan and a cost estimate for the rest to bring up to as high as we want to go on that request.
I feel like we have an issue with our existing facility. We don't have ADA compliancy to anything, right? To nothing.
We got a handicap porta potty now.
That's because we have our things. That's the only reason why we have our fun days.
That's over.
Yeah.
Compliant one down at the beach,
You did?
actually, too,
Okay.
because we were like, why didn't we?
So that's a
turn them
good,
on there Before,
that's
so
a
we're
good
just,
baseline to justify connectivity to all the facilities we have, which are, of course are minimal, but why not maximize it? You
Right.
know, and we could scratch and move and take things out and stop it where we want to have a line of demarcation where we want to the potential for future things. It really is, it's an open book. And the connectivity grants they fly out annually,
yeah,
annually.
And they're easy to administer,
Yes.
knock on wood, but they are one of the easier DOT grants
Right.
to get through.
And Gate Street needs it badly. For some reason, I have no idea why the design at the exit, the egress portion of Gate Street was done the way it was. I don't know if that was an easement thing, maybe Dino didn't want to give up part of his easement.
Mhm.
I don't know that, but that's a train wreck right there.
Mhm.
Very tight.
It's a train wreck. Should be
Especially when there's
20 feet wider,
trucks
wider
coming in.
radius.
Yeah.
The bushes.
Yeah.
Line of sight, yeah, sight lines heading,
There's a car parked there, you can't see it anymore.
You're talking about where it comes out on.
oh, yeah.
You know
Yeah.
something? I sat on my step and watched that. One time they had a car show over there with big rigs,
Mhm.
big rigs. It was amazing the way they could maneuver. I mean, they just came flying down the street and pulled right in, pulled right up. I was like flabbergasted at the,
Well, don't say that when we're going to get our grant.
no, I won't.
It sucks, it sucks, it
I
sucks,
was
it
just saying,
sucks.
oh my God, I mean, you know, but it takes a special person to be able to do
Yeah,
that.
there are a lot of skilled drivers, but there are a lot of unskilled drivers.
Oh,
too.
yes, that's what I mean.
I think there are more unskilled drivers than there are skilled drivers. And I
would
really
agree.
feel like that whole intersection right here is bad, and DOT probably would
It
say the
is.
same thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is. And then there's the 18-wheelers that try to make a right-hand turn coming out of Church Street.
We just requested to put Church Street no through trucks.
Good.
So, but somewhere at the state has to approve it.
No,
You have to do a study
Yeah, big
first.
wait.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long it's gonna take.
We put no through trucks on 138 too.
Actually, you know what? There should be,
supposed to
because
be
there's a
before.
culvert on the east side or west side of the 201 that has a 22
By
ton
the
weight. on it.
solar panels, we're supposed.
So all these trucks you see ripping through here should not even be
We
here.
should put a big sign, the tolls are no longer on 95. This-
Yeah,
It's
Terrible.
pretty,
there was
pretty
a
poor.
definite increase when they did that.
It's pretty poor. And I'm sorry, Kevin, we went down a rabbit hole there.
Oh, that's fine.
So
I think more to come on that one, and that's something, you know, we can talk about offline too, as far as what that looks like for that grant, you know, to be working with John as far as how we, you know, the pieces that we need to give him to get that moving.
he's gonna hate us.
Well, because we're working on
He's doing
doing the
it.
sidewalks for in front of the school, so that there's a sidewalk that goes on the right side. So that there's a sidewalk from like Claudia's all the way down. all the way down to the. mall.
Which would hopefully incorporate RFBs,
Yeah,
decorative crosswalks, warning
yeah, it's
lights.
gonna have all that. It's gonna go all the way down to the town grill. But the most expensive part of that grant is there has to be a bridge,
Bridge.
a walking bridge.
The head bridge over that culvert down by the strip mall.
Really?
Yeah, because there's a brook,
Yeah.
Wait a minute now.
there's a brook there
Yep.
and the
Hold on a
road's
second.
not wide enough.
So the East Haddam and Haddam Swing Bridge is putting a sidewalk attached to their bridge.
I don't think it can do that on this one.
It dwarfs that little culvert right there, dwarfs it. Oh, yeah,
The amount of oversight on the DOT bridge department to try and hang something off of that head wall. It would wind up being more expensive is my gut feeling.
yeah, you think,
That just to drop in some precast head walls or precast abutments
supplements, yeah,
and drop in a prefab head bridge. It's
pretty simple.
exactly, and keep it away from their structure entirely.
Mhm.
You know, I see that being years
That
of,
makes sense. That makes sense.
you know, consultant liaisons talking about inspection reports for, it's just.
Yeah, that
How
makes
does that
sense.
affect traffic though? How does that affect truck traffic?
It would,
It wouldn't affect anything.
Not affect
Wouldn't be
Oh
separate.
gee, that's too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, what we can do to keep it. going?
And I'll tell you what would
Can we
help,
walk right down
I'll
the
tell you
middle
what
of the
would
road?
help. Presence of a state trooper.
There was one
Oh,
here this week,
please.
Yeah.
hiding.
Was it?
Yeah.
We could talk for hours about this subject.
And there used to be a
No,
police
my
presence. out
my
there.
kids have been going to that school for 10 years and I just watched a truck come through here at 55 miles an hour and walking in.
Oh, well,
That's a tandem,
Yeah.
whatever those food trucks are.
The
You see it
ones?
every day.
Oh, the US
Yeah.
What about the state cops?
I think I've got videos of them going right by me with camera.
Yeah.
One stopping, looking down at their phone, looked up, I was there. Getting rid at me, I mean, every day. It's crazy how they speed.
Mhm.
And the poor students can be standing right there, the local kids. Traffic doesn't even stop till I get in the middle of the road.
Middle of the road.
Yeah.
Nobody has common sense.
You should get hazard
People
pay.
standing there.
No,
Yeah,
It's,
out of town license plates, cars without out of town license plate, they stop.
It's because they get pulled over in
But they have,
Massachusetts.
yeah, they have
There's a cop that
laws
pulls them
in
over.
their states and they've probably been pulled over.
Yeah, because
so
you're
they stop.
supposed to stop for people at crosswalks.
crosswalk,
like,
yeah.
I don't know with Pilates here.
Okay.
There we go.
Reel it back.
yeah, which reminds me of the flashing lights for the school zone. That's still in,
Yeah, we got them. We have.
Oh, you got 'em?
No, we don't have them yet. We just have to, they gave me the plan for them like over a year ago. I have to make sure the plan's still good.
So these last couple items, be it the community garden, rain garden, view sheds and site landscaping. We can break apart each one of those, but I think generally speaking, they're all, you know, they would all take some sales pitch to some members of the community that look at all these as being too high.
You can probably get grants through the Master Garden program.
Yep.
There are grants for the gardens.
I think the rain garden could fall under
There's rain garden grants. for-
some type of stormwater.
Yeah,
Some type of stormwater, the small rain garden grants coming out of Yukon Clear,
Clear, yeah, right.
you know, so, okay, we're not gonna be spending 150 to 200 grand on rain gardens in one fell swoop. You know, some of these are gonna be big enough to be, you know, kind
You
of
can
detention
even
basin, water quality
Yeah.
basins. We could be looking for.
Relatively
there.
inexpensive.
Exactly,
You can even get volunteer Master Gardeners to put it in.
put it in, absolutely.
The Clear program probably has students that are willing
Yeah.
to, or have internships or programs where Clear is through UConn. So it's a great program. You can read online about it and
Yeah.
guarantee there's money available for that.
So, yeah, the rain garden one, thinking about that one a little bit by splitting that, there could be some rain garden component, there could be some water quality basins, throwing in some more of the, you know, the key phrases, the catch terms as far as, you know, water quality, stormwater infiltration, rather than just saying specifically rain garden, because somebody's gonna look at a rain garden and say, well, I can do that for $5,000, you know, at the.
So
So,
it's gotta be engineered.
But it has
It's
a
gotta-
purpose.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't see that bottom line changing, but I'm gonna put in a couple other items in there and break it apart to kind of bulk up how we got to 150. The community garden, just backing up to that, number 17, I think that's reasonable. I mean, looking at that, okay, half of that budget is for a chain link fence. Frankly, I would rather that a chain link fence not be around a community garden. I would think it would be, if any fence at all, it would be, something more static, split rail and things. But recognizing critter containment or critter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what about the deer?
Right,
There's
yeah,
not many deer that go back there.
Really?
Yeah, cause I live right next door. I don't get any deer. As far as woodchucks or other critters, there's those, but, you
Give
don't get
James a
that.
variance to hunt them, that would keep them out.
But yeah, I agree, like you could put a split rail in there or, some another kind of area.
exactly.
No good.
So the geese can
Yeah,
fertilize.
right.
True.
They're out there all the time.
I think that one, okay, for planning monies for $50,000 against a community garden, I think that's a fair place to be. That's enough money to be creative.
Yeah.
But, again, with
We
this,
should definitely knock that down.
I see, a lot of potential community garden as like a co-op.
Yep.
Cooperative situation. Yep. Kind of like the Peace Trust does.
That's where volunteers would probably be.
Yes.
Maybe a new committee,
Yeah.
new commission, the garden commission.
We already have volunteers from the garden club. We still have one member.
all right, we got through community garden, got through rain garden, down to the view sheds. The view shed item is where we put the fishing pier and overlook onto the water. And that's the reason that one is as expensive as it is. Took a $75,000 line item onto a fishing pier. That can be as big or as little as you want it. That number could come down if we wanted it, could go up if we wanted it. That's kind of order of magnitude. What do we want out there? But thought 75 was a good place to be to say, okay, that's got enough horsepower that it's, there's enough money there that to make it big enough to be useful. And that's, again, that view shed, that's why that, 100.5 is there. Yeah, selective clearing, some maintenance activities. Could you go down there and clear out invasives for less than 30 grand? Yes. But in a case like this, there's no harm in putting it in there because it frankly could get stupid, or you could put that money elsewhere into a bigger fishing pier. So 100.5 for the work down along the water. I think that's money well spent. However, that gets spent.
I'm not sure.
There is invasives, there's also kind of understory clearing. And because of the sensitivity of the adjacent water body, kind of cover that by saying invasives management, invasives clearing, rather than just saying we're going to go down there with a brush hog and mow down all, well, okay, you're going to get people that say, well, there's native vegetation, we want to preserve the native, so there's some benefit down there, there's also some invasives.
Right.
That in order to make that functional would really be, going down there, highlighting specific areas that would be cleared. But that's also view shed. Open up the water so it's not as scary to people that, that, hey, there's water, that's part of the park, is to get down there and experience it.
Shooting from the hip now, Friends of Patchogue State Forest might be a good angle with that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
It
what
doesn't
they're
hurt to-
capable of,
Right.
who they, how they do their grant, writing or who they look for. That might be a good angle. DEP might have grants for that. It's a public waterway, so. You put up a placard, an informational placard, an educational placard, they might say, all right.
Yeah, that's
we'll
true.
help you out.
Yeah.
These are the type of fish that live here, these are the trees you're looking at, these are the birds that live here.
Right.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's part of the overall, marketing of the park, is to say if somebody's coming down there, well, there's some informational signage about, hey, if you're standing on a pier, these are going to be the aquatic, animals that are beneath you. These are the, bird species above you. For short money, you could put some signage down there and make it, really open up for people who wouldn't normally think
You don't really
about.
think about it, right? Yeah.
It's a good study for kids in school.
Yeah.
They walk down there.
They do.
They would more.
They would more if they had,
They would.
yeah.
Have you ever been to the one in Old Line, the place in Old Line, is a boat launch on Mile Creek Road, the very, very end where it hits the sound. And there's a giant pier, probably 20 by 20, and it has that. And I'm willing to bet that the DEP funded that construction. I guarantee it.
I was thinking about the Meg's Point, center down at the end of Hammonasset. You know, that
Yeah,
conservation
yeah.
center where the trails going through the salt marshes, there are signage,
Yep.
there are. It's DEP Park, DEP's funding that, it's same thing,
It's the same thing.
you know, here's a sign that says these the birds, these the fish, it's a feel good thing.
Yeah.
So,
Another great example.
last item, site landscaping. Honestly, this number is gonna scare people too. On our plan, there's a lot of green, a lot of trees. because-
Public Works said something about that.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
but they're also out there looking around going, right now you have no trees. And
Right.
the trees that you have have been girdled so bad that most of them need to be removed.
Yes, start over.
Right. So, you know, okay, looking at this, do we really need 160 trees? No. But to make the plan graphically appear the way it is and the way people would want to be walking under a shade canopy of mature trees. All the trees don't have to come at once, but you know what? To put 20 a year in or 50 at the first flush and then, you know, 10 a year after that.
We can incorporate that in different phases.
Exactly.
Look at number 16, you could
There
put
you go.
50 trees in
Yeah.
in the connectivity grant.
That's exactly right.
Um,
You know, so that's. I say selfishly, you know, when we start counting tree by tree, it's a lot of trees, but the overall plan. I think it lays out really well, recognizing the amount of shade that, you know, you could have people under that, you know, under those shade canopies of the trees.
We need the shade.
Right,
And the deficit of shade.
right,
You need to stay, but you have to be careful with the, when you exit out onto the street, because
yes,
these trees out here, I know have been a major problem with pulling out of Gate Street.
Oh, yeah, those
Especially
trees, yeah.
For the,
Bushes.
The bushes.
When,
the.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
when in fact there is a design for this. This master plan is not the design. When in fact there is a design, they will have to follow whatever sightline restrictions and requirements that are in place within the town, within the state. They'll have to follow that. So like, for example, if you see this little egress here at the parking lot, which is at 20.
Yep.
Right here. They'll have to follow all these trees might have to get pushed back, or maybe they'll have to limit the size of them or the
Well, you know,
species or.
there is a tree at the dollar store down there.
Mhm.
mhm.
When you pull in, on the left-hand side, there's 3 of them, and they're actually oaks.
Mhm.
But they're tall
Mhm.
and they're very slender, and I think it's Kindred Spirit is the name of them.
okay,
But they're very nice looking trees. They don't make a lot of mess because they are, you know,
Tall and slender.
right.
Yeah, right.
And I look at them every time I see them, and I think that's Kindred Spirit, because I had looked at those at one time. I was looking for one that was tall and slender for the side of my house. But
When you build a house, your driveway has to have a sightline requirement. So that same rule would apply.
yeah, same rule.
Yeah. Yeah. We can pick those trees. If you like the Kindred Spirit ones, we can pick those. Line the whole street evenly, you know, dimensionally.
it's a very nice looking tree.
Mhm.
Attractive, you know, it doesn't flower, but you know, it's an attractive looking tree, and it doesn't create a lot of mess because there are a lot of branches and leaves, you know. So it's not a mighty oak, in other words.
Kind of wide open.
The
Yeah, thank goodness.
whoever, whether it be Barton Lauderdale or whoever ends up designing separate phases will probably have a landscape architect on board, and they'll recommend certain vegetation put in. And then we have the ability to say no or say yes.
Yeah, and looking at the Kindred Spirit oak now, I would wholeheartedly agree with those species being out there for specifically some along the Gate Street corridor.
Mm.
I mean, tall, linear. Absolutely.
Just how expensive are they?
Depends on what size you want to get. We can get 6 or 10 inches and they'll be really expensive. We get 2 inches and they won't be that That's what they call it, it's caliper.
Yeah, caliper. So I mean, typically, even like a 3-inch caliper winds up being in, 6 to 8 foot tree. So, okay, maybe you spend your money on some 4-inch caliper trees in specific locations, and then maybe some 2 or 3-inch caliper trees on the rest. Carrying, a unit price for $800 each, that would easily get you a 3-inch caliper on any species coming out of, Price Corner Farms or any of the other wholesalers.
The DOT prices those as well.
Yep.
I can show you guys the website. If you want to break down this entire thing, I could show you the website and it's a lot, it's like 100 and something pages. But
And trees and landscaping become a real good opportunity for, a community, fundraising effort for,
Name a tree, people can name.
Yeah,
trees after
exactly.
Name a tree.
people.
Yeah, make a donation, you get your name on it.
and if you have a master plan that says, okay, there's a dozen trees going here and there's, 6 trees going. At this point, you can use this plan to say, generally speaking, this is where trees go. Pick one you want your name on it.
Yep.
And it's, that's a feel good thing. I mean, typically it's, bricks and,
Right.
bricks and trees are what get names and benches.
It's benches.
Yeah. So, that carries me through all the items as far as the cost estimate's concerned. That bottom line at, right around 4 million. There's gonna be some changes up and down, but honestly, in the, in that 4.2 to 5 and change, I think that's where the bottom line is gonna come. That's, from everything we were talking about tonight, yeah, there's gonna be, a couple that go up and a couple that go down. My feeling is that bottom line is really not gonna change much. To that point, we could pull out item 16. Because honestly, that grant will be going in by the time there's a final master plan document. So if we needed to lower that number, we pull 16 right out, leave it on the plan and just say, currently funded or funded through other, other opportunities, other avenues. Or leave it in the overall price and just then highlight it and say, as a feel good thing, hey, we're already going after this grant. We can pull that right out. Depending on how we, want to sell it.
My opinion is ultimately Gate Street has to be addressed. Anyway, there's one thing that I didn't see in the Gate Street in item number 16 with resurfacing of the road.
Correct.
Doesn't really have to be done. I'm not sure what the requirements are town-wise or state-wise, or what the grant would even require.
No, I think it's on our list.
Okay.
We're working on the road plan right now.
Because a lot of times with this one section of sidewalk that's going down one side, you have to have what they call integral curb.
Mhm,
And at that point, you have to excavate a certain section of the road anyway.
mhm.
Would it be beneficial to do the whole thing, or would it be beneficial to just, patch that 2 feet for them to excavate for the sidewalk?
We probably want to do the road once everything's probably done, so we don't ruin it.
So you don't ruin it. Yeah. No, it would be done post
Yeah.
sidewalk installation, obviously. But you have that whole strip of 2 feet of asphalt that would be completely sacrificed.
But we
Or
pulled
you-
the sidewalk far enough out with the snow shelf, we didn't have.
There you
any
go.
curb.
You don't even have to touch it.
To isolate it so that not knowing when Gate Street was going to be on the 5-year list.
Yeah.
We left it so that they could be done separately and no worries. So, the only thing we'd have to integrate would be, a new handicap accessible ramp with the warning pad, but that's it. So, from here, if there's anything more on the costs, I will say that there'll be an updated one for next month when we roll out the document itself, and then, this is in draft form up until the point we finalize it. There's still draft, there's still room for, negotiation, if you will. There's still room to move things around. But looking at the time at right around 8 o'clock, I'd also like to spend a couple minutes on the sidewalk plan on Gate Street. So if there's anything more on the overall master plan, we can touch on that now, then I can pivot to more kind of the nuts and bolts of the sidewalk. So I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to answer based upon that plan tonight too.
I like the plan.
I like this one too.
Great.
Couple of questions with like the existing features. Are we doing any updates to those, like the basketball court fencing damage around there? We're gonna make improvements to that. And of course, the existing soccer field. What are we doing about, grass? Any talk or anything we can get in there where we would have, a water supply? To keep this set grass soccer field, all that maintained, you know, where we can be doing something like that. Cause that's, I mean, this is all beautiful, that soccer field, and that part of that field, is gonna be a problem.
That is a real problem.
Yeah, I mean,
We spent money to reseed it all
Yeah.
last year and then we had a drought and no way to water it and. Oh,
Ended up with a fine crop of Queen Anne's lace.
Yeah.
The kids were tripping over it.
It's not that,
that needs to,
Right.
that needs fixed. That field, is obviously a big concern, and we can do all sorts of, turfs and features like that, but without any irrigation.
Right.
This is an ongoing problem, because
Yeah.
hydro seeding, I've looked in, talked to people that do hydro seeding, and we've started looking at other options, and it's all sort of a waste of money, if you will, and time, if we can't get a reliable source of water in that area.
in talking about wells, I mean, that can be, you know, recognizing the pavilion cost at 175, we're talking about knocking that easily in half. We could leave that and add an item on that, on the building for wells. Or look to a larger long-term plan for, you know, public water.
we are working on the plan for public water.
Exactly.
so.
So,
What kind of a well does a town have in the school? Because I know they had opened it up last year during the drought to people to come and get water, and I thought, is the well gonna run dry?
The well, we have the well out back here. That's not drinkable though. It's just,
Our school, well, we have two. We have two artesian wells. That's pretty deep.
in the
Sometimes
garage
we're
well.
able to supply the town with any water they needed. I mean, there's, you know.
And the same with the garage well. We just got it approved for public water for drinking. So we're just, with the budget that just passed, included in some of the stuff for the garage was the stuff needed to make it.
Is there a potential to use that well with secondary pump system to irrigate the field?
I don't know if it would get down here.
What about,
You could
you know,
run-
getting a big tank for one of the trucks?
So
So that you could, you know, just go out there and spray it.
so an option that's been used, depending on the yield test coming out of a well that's here, some towns will say, well, we're going to put in, you know, a 10,000 gallon tank. And then that tank's gonna be pressurized by the well. So you don't have a drawdown of the well on an immediate basis when all the sprinklers go
They
on.
use that for fire.
Because there is the
all
well
the time.
Exactly,
right there.
exactly.
Like seriously, it's
So
right
you
there.
plumb that well into a tank, you know, you slow feed the tank, and then that tank gets drawn down when the sprinklers come on. That's something
That's
that,
how our school, that's how the school set up. We
right,
have a 3,000 gallon holding tank
right,
that gets filled when we draw, and it just is.
You're pulling off the tank as opposed to pulling off the well.
Right.
right.
So like Kevin says, it's just a slow feed.
Slow
Yeah.
So
feed.
that essentially could be piped from that well
Exactly.
to a tank in the field
Right. because-
with a little, call it a substation pump house
Yeah,
with irrigation.
yeah.
Because
Strictly, maybe strictly to one location, be it the soccer field. So we're not running into that, and it might benefit the rec commission every year. We want to oversee. And if you have water, you don't have a drought problem.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that might be good. I don't know what it would entail to draw from the river. One of the guys that I'm friends with that does irrigation, hydroseed and everything, he just did several jobs in fields in Putnam,
Mhm.
soccer fields down, I'm drawing the name of it. Can't think of it. The little river runs down through and connects to the Quinnebog, and they're able to pull from
It
that.
pulls from the Quinnebog.
They're pulling from the little river that runs down through
Okay.
the recreation park. Yeah.
Patchogue River is substantially bigger than the.
And the little river is
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
So I'm shut down, and I don't know what that means, what you have to go through for DP or whatever it is. even be able to do that. You know, it's not very big of a river.
Millstone does it.
Yeah, and that's what he did.
They do it.
And he ran it, the soccer field's quite a ways up the road.
Yeah.
And that's what they did to run irrigation.
A couple of really good options. I mean,
What do they
we're gonna
use?
spend all this money on resurfacing turf
They
fields.
use a hose or they have piping, piping.
I mean, that was terrible last year.
It was horrible.
Kids were
That's awful.
yeah, going out there, pulling up the Queen Anne place before the
Yeah.
game.
We spent,
Practices, you know.
we spent like $1,500 overseeding that field and it still hasn't recovered
I
today.
know. Well, last year was just.
It was bad.
And it would just be a shame to see this project as it looks like it's going to be beautiful and have to still keep dealing with that field. Again, like I said, there's so much effort been putting into it, but without Mother Nature giving us that steady rain, it's all.
It's futile, it's futile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
No, and that's, and, you know, and those are good points, you know, to add that to our budget, you know, and that, you know, it'll be a lump sum, you know, irrigation in the field.
Yeah.
You know, irrigation and
I think the
overseeing.
soccer field is the priority.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say everything else is necessarily a
Yep.
priority.
We can get that one.
They have
area.
events out there too.
But if you got a
At graduation, it was like,
if you get a main line, I'm sure you could branch off that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, say if you wanted a drip system for the community garden, you know, or a drip system for some of the
Yeah.
plants that are around, you know.
I think I priced the tank out this past winter
Okay,
from, I can't remember the name of the company. It's in southwestern Connecticut somewhere. Concrete tank. It was
Yep.
like $12,000,
it
$15,000.
seems, the last one I had was like 10 grand and that was 5 years ago,
Yeah.
so. Seems reasonable.
All pump house over it.
Done.
Irrigation,
Yep.
Yeah,
just ADS pipe,
that's it.
Exactly.
They run it on the ground, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going.
have it blown out in the, for winter. I mean, there's maintenance.
Yeah, it's okay though. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, as opposed to us out there trying to get seating and.
Maybe as a
Well-
representative from the school, we could talk to Adam.
Good plan. I know V.
I know their budget's done for the year. I know that.
Yeah,
But
he's scrambling, but.
see, this goes into next year, you know?
Yeah, soccer club, and track, you know, they couldn't track over there. They had to go over here, so. The school, yeah, I can push that on both sides, yeah.
I believe Kevin's probably noted it, so.
Yeah.
We're,
Great.
Yep, we're good,
pretty good.
we're good on that one.
You wanna go through the sidewalk?
I do. Like I said, next month, the intent would be, we come back with, you know, our original plan was to have the master plan, you know, potentially complete for July. So we're, you know, on target, and if that slides into the August meeting, you know, to fine tune that, but our intent is to have a substantially complete plan with words and updates on this plan, updates on the cost next month. Okay. So, the sidewalk plan here to, oh, perfect. Thank you, Emily. That format, starting at 138 here, running down to the handicap parking spaces by the basketball court. Specifically, it's how do we connect into 138? And where do we terminate the sidewalks going down Gate Street? Those are my two big questions. Right now, I've got this shown where the sidewalks come on the town hall side, creating a connection out to the sidewalks. This is the existing light pole. Right here, the granite planter light pole, and there's a hitching post right out in front. The idea is that this slightly realigned and comes up here. Missing, there's a guy wire coming off that utility pole. So effectively, the sidewalk's coming up through the lawn area, so that we are avoiding all the parking, loading dock, dumpster pad issue. And then we're gonna cross, there's a utility pole right there that appears to be, you know, abandoned. It looks like it could have been an old light for the ball fields or something on it. There's a meter that's no longer functioning. The idea is that this sidewalk comes right across where that pole is. And then from there, backstop gets removed, sidewalk runs on the east side of Gate Street for the remainder.
So that entire fence line comes out.
entire fence line comes out. So that from anywhere along that sidewalk, you can get onto that multi-use field.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And then we're showing an 8-foot shelf. Referred to as a snow shelf.
Snow shelf.
That 8-foot shelf would have decorative light fixtures similar to what you've got on 138. And then street trees along. And all that could be built into that connectivity grant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that 8-foot snow shelf, there's enough room for grading so that the sidewalk is held at the field level. And then there's a shelf, that snow shelf tapers down to the road.
Yeah, it won't affect the road at all.
Exactly. Won't affect the road and it stays high enough that we don't have to cut into the field and then worry about drainage
Right.
coming out, bleeding out of the hill onto the sidewalk. Keep it high and dry, let it shed back to the road. From there, coming down Gate Street. The existing basketball court and the existing concrete pad for bleachers. My feeling is that bleacher pad is too low.
I agree.
That,
There is a yard drain there. I have
Okay.
no idea where that yard drain goes, but I think that entire location could be elevated.
that time
And it
we
would
could get picked up
eliminate
2
that
feet.
yard drain whatsoever.
You know, effectively bring it up to the grade of the basketball
Basketball
court.
court, yeah.
And then what that allows us to do is, you know, right now, those 2 spaces that are handicap spaces are nowhere near compliant.
No,
So you're picking those spaces up a couple feet too. So this whole area, be it the bleachers, that becomes a handicap accessible route from the parking to the bleachers. That pad would then provide, you know, an accessible location for wheelchair access onto the bleacher pad to watch games.
so would you be extending that pad to give it more space with the bleachers?
Yep.
Okay,
And then, you know, all of that detail here for, you know, what would wind up being, you know, mimicking the 2 spaces that we have. In looking at this plan here, the newest Connecticut portion of the 88 code allows us to share the striped aisles. So we can gain us a little room in
a
there.
little bit more room.
Yep. And that may be, you know, we can talk about that, whether that's a 3rd conventional parking space or just more shoulder room, if you
Right, more
will.
walking space or whatever.
So, but we can talk about that, but that's, you know, we're nailing down those details through that corridor now.
I think I would personally like to see that sidewalk that kind of comes out of the handicap spots and gets back toward where the existing playground is now.
Yep.
Per your proposed plan,
Mhm.
be part of it.
Perfect.
There's no ADA compliancy back to the existing playground. And elevation wise, grade wise, we'd probably have a little bit more feasibility with the potential.
Yep.
Or the proposed bike course. And I believe those are beach volleyball courts right there, at number 7.
Yep.
I think we could work with that, but we need some type of accessibility back to those. This may take 5 years for us to get this project complete. In the meantime, per the connectivity grant, let's get some ADA compliancy back to the playground. I think it needs to happen.
Yeah, and part of that is, you know, that is the connectivity for the overall pedestrian pathway anyway.
Right.
So
And it's already in place.
that's right. That's right.
I mean, it's a couple hundred feet of sidewalk that.
Yeah.
Could be covered under another grant, which limits, cost for the end result, right? It's minimal, but
Yeah.
it is there.
So you have bleachers
They're there
for
right
the
now.
basketball court,
They're existing as we
Mhm.
speak.
but there are no bleachers for the soccer
Correct.
field.
There are not.
Do you know how hard those concrete steps are?
Okay, on that note, there were bleachers there.
Mhm.
They were the old wooden steel frame.
I think there still is something
There's-
there,
There's
There is.
something, yeah,
We have to build it. The rec commission has to redo them.
so you're gonna redo them, but
Well,
they,
that's the
but
plan.
but where
James
are
has
they-
a pile of
are
lumber
they
in his house
located?
right now.
where are they located here in relation to the soccer?
They're
Aren't they
over-
down
they're
here?
over here somewhere.
They're right there.
think they're on the
side.
Yeah,
of
you
the
can
swing.
see them.
yeah.
So you've got, see this little loop here where you've got the stairs and you've got the handicap
That's the
ramp
only
going
ADA,
down?
ADA compliancy that exists.
In the
in
middle
that
there,
entire- Yeah,
there is an area where they had planted some beautiful little flame spireas
Mhm.
that were overtaken by mugwort.
Mhm.
And the mugwort is terrible.
It's bad.
Mugwort is growing into the concrete over here.
And Spireas are pretty hardy themselves.
They're gone. They're totally gone. And there's also piping around there so that the maintenance people can't get in there to mow.
That's a handrail that needs to happen.
And, well, that's okay, but I mean,
Switch back.
if you could just get rid of the mugwort, just concrete them over or whatever you have to do to them. And put some bleachers in there.
So we had a
You know?
lovely conversation with the town department, the highway department. This was probably 2 years ago
Mhm.
now. And they're so limited, we're limited, they're limited. That's all it comes down to is the whole volunteer thing again. Like, how much time do people have to go out there and do that type of thing? And I think this is on school property.
Mhm.
Although the rec commission went after grant funding for that staircase and
Right.
for the switchback. So that was kind of like here you go, we're all about the community, let's do this. Landscaping, lighting was all taken out because of budget.
Budget.
Well, the landscaping was in there, but it's just been destroyed.
It takes maintenance.
And, yeah, I know, it
I think we
does.
talked about putting stone in there.
Yeah, we were gonna put matting and stone
Yeah.
and it's a pain in the butt for those guys to weed whack and,
Yeah.
and it's what, 3 of them, 4 of them?
Right.
Yeah, it's like,
Well,
Yeah,
right now.
you're
it's
right, like, they see-
vacation time, So we're lucky if
they saw this plan and they were probably like, oh my God.
Next couple of weeks.
But I mean, I was horrified because, I've been watching the soccer games because my grandson
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
still in junior high and,
It sucks.
it's like, oh my God, and it's growing into the concrete steps, so that's gonna be a problem. Unless somebody does something.
Well, I think along with what this bottom line that we have, this $4.1 million to 5.4, there's going to have to be some maintenance program put into place for this. This is a big dollar amount.
Mugwort remediation.
But that can be horrible to get rid of.
Yeah,
No, it's bad. I got it at my
It's
house.
just-
You gotta just keep mowing it.
I had a little
Cover
bit
it.
in my backyard and I had somebody come in, just doing some work over there anyway, and he ripped it up. That was the-
Is there any need to extend the sidewalk further down?
You mean past the bicycle?
Yeah.
lane?
Yeah, effectively,
I don't
I don't
think
believe
so.
so.
it didn't feel like there was the need, but I wanted to make sure that,
If I would do anything extension wise, where your number 3 is here, would make the parking lot big. Right, the parking, right now it accommodates 2 handicap
Yep.
spots. So if we're gonna put in a bike thing, 2 volleyball courts, these folks are gonna have to navigate.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like maybe 4 more spots, 5 more spots. I don't know what it's all kind of a crapshoot.
exactly,
However, you put an 8-foot snow shelf in. You got park on the side of the road.
yeah, it's easier to not technically introduce on-street parking, but
Yeah.
with an 8-foot shelf, that's people gonna park
It's
there.
not a busy road.
No,
As long as they're not in the road, because the only thing is, that's the way that, the public works vehicles go through there and emergency vehicles if they have to get gas, so.
I would say probably put a couple more parking spots next to the handicap spots. It's not that, as opposed to like making a sidewalk go further, the cost
Yeah.
is probably minimal.
Yep.
Yeah, based on what I see over there, it's like 2 to like 4 cars.
You introduce this
Yeah.
bike thing,
Yeah.
if you build it, they will come.
They will come. Yeah. They might park up at the school and just walk down that little hill to get there too.
They could.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I'm cool with that.
School
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, it's a good hill to go
That's where
down.
they start with their bikes.
It's different.
Right down the hill. They live in that park.
Yeah, I wouldn't say extend the sidewalk. I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
I mean, folks feel.
I agree.
Well, I'm sorry,
I think they
what
should
is going to be the main
Yeah.
access to the bicycle part?
it would be coming off that sidewalk, because the intent right now is they're parking right here, parking in the full parking lot, and then going down Gate Street, going down the sidewalk to that park.
Which in fact could be a good thing if you want them to park in this parking lot. And limit how many cars you do have parked. So
I mean,
if you don't put it there, then they won't use it and they'll have to park wherever they're forced to.
right. I mean, we are putting in a huge sidewalk in for them too. It's like,
Right.
how much are we gonna do for them?
Right, mean, there is that component where if you're coming here for recreation, another 200 feet of,
Yeah,
And they're gonna be on a bike.
that's right. So,
I think those additional parking spots would accommodate the people using the playground in the meantime.
Yeah.
And then in the future, it would accommodate people wanting to use the volleyball or the basketball or.
Yeah.
Well, would you keep them all handicap
No,
spots?
No.
no,
nope,
I think
Just,
that
you
was,
just did the two there
I
and
think
then,
that was done improperly to begin with. I'm,
gonna say, what we would do is make sure that we take the calculation for all the parking in the property and make sure we have enough handicap spaces
Yeah.
for the project, for the property.
Yeah.
I could make an argument that say we put one handicap space down at the
yeah,
basketball court,
right,
and then the rest come over here. Is you're meeting the intent of the ADA code,
yes.
you're providing a handicap accessible spot at the nearest point to the, to the destination. But spread them around.
I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah, there's no need for two.
No,
I don't think I've ever seen any handicap people parking in those handicap.
because if
No, I
nobody
haven't
takes
either.
sidewalks to,
they can't move
they
anywhere.
can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you can go.
Yeah.
And it's not the commission's fault, like historically, because that was done years and years ago. They did what they felt was right.
They had good intent.
They had good intentions.
I think I saw one person out there who was watching her grandson slide down the hill in winter. She was parked over there. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah, the people I saw
Yeah.
parking there weren't even
I
handicapped.
think Kevin, that'd be.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah. What is the requirement? Is it a square footage or is it a?
No,
Basis?
It's spaces, so it's one per 50, excuse me, 1 per 25 for the first 100, and then 1 per 50 after.
Okay,
So,
okay.
I haven't counted, I don't have the number of spaces off the top of my head, but I'm guessing there's gonna be 3,
3 to 4.
yeah, maybe 4. So, the idea would be, whatever we have in this existing lot, leave them, and then we build in a couple of new spaces around the park, one at the basketball court, to make sure we hit the target and,
Here's the loaded question. Is this drawing, this 2-page drawing you have significant enough for fine?
we're very close.
Okay.
We're very close. To hit that target of the July 21st deadline, this drawing is at a 60% plan set. So
Fantastic.
we'll get there so that application says, we've got construction ready drawings for the Gate Street corridor.
Is John aware of this? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was what we've been working towards, is to say, as part of this master plan component, we've been running parallel with this so that, that grant application says, we've got a construction ready doc to submit.
Awesome.
And then the rest of that substantiates the rest of the grant amount is the conceptual plan that we're now talking about for the additional, pathways. And I'll be honest, the last 2 connectivity grants I got were back in napkin sketches. Were really rough concepts with, photoshopped in pictures of benches.
And line items, and that's it.
Yeah, so, to have this level of detail, both on these plans and the conception and the overall master plan, the concept plan,
Pretty good shape.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
I've talked myself out, I'm done.
All good.
I'm good, I'm done. So,
So you got all the answers you needed from.
got all the answers. Yep, got all the answers.
For these,
What's that?
Are there any more of these?
Here,
you can have one.
you do that one.
You sure?
Of course.
Okay,
I have
I
it
just
here.
want to bring it to my meeting, just find it next.
That's a great evening. Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
It was very informative.
Wonderful. And I will say that full-size plan, I can leave that behind, so you can.
Yeah, we
take-
can leave
leave
it,
it here.
but the other one's in here, everyone looks at it,
Perfect.
the old one.
Also,
Take the old one out and put the new one
Oh,
in.
he's doing phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Where do you leave it?
This is John you're referring to.
The
He's-
planner.
He's the town planner.
Town planner?
Yeah.
He's good. He's the gentleman that was on Zoom with us in initial meetings with the glasses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's here on Wednesday.
Did he work with you?
Yep.
Work with you?
I've hired him. I've hired in Hampton, and now he and I collaborate on some other towns too. So I've known John. I first worked with John in 2010, 2011 in Essex. So I've known him for a long time. Lives in Pomfrey, lives 10 minutes from me. So he's a great resource. really is.
Awesome.
He's our temporary zoning enforcement officer right now. so.
Oh, really? Oh, I like him. He seems like a great guy.
Really is.
Yes. Yeah.
He is.
He's a good grant writer.
He's a great grant writer and he has the patience of a saint,
Mm.
which you don't find very often in the zoning enforcement planning world. And it's great when I hired him in, for us in Hampton, Hampton's a small farming town,
Yeah,
you know.
very similar to Valentine.
Right, our applicants don't want, shiny shoes and, an opinion coming out of Hartford.
Yeah.
And John toes that line so well, he can, he knows what it takes to get a job done, in Eastern Connecticut, which is great.
Yeah, we get looked aside of the state very frequently.
All right, are we all set?
Yeah.
Are we all done?
All set, I'm all good.
Does anybody have any further comments? Meeting adjourned?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it right here. It'll be right in the meeting.
At,